Cool. Well, welcome everyone to the dining table. The dining table is a new format where everyone Archex comes around and we discuss about things happening in the market, what's going on at Arc, and connecting with the community. So that being said, let's get into it. So this week, market roundup. We had Hot Protocol post or last week posted a thread about their airdrop and how they had to employ some pretty sophisticated methods to prevent civils from attacking it. So I found it quite interesting because a lot of this stuff kind of relies on identity reputation. And it really ties into a lot of the things that we're doing here. But yeah, Kyle, like I wonder if there's anything that like resonates with you about that.
You said me?
Yep.
Um, I mean, it tells us that like, they're doing all this effort for a very specific problem versus we have the infrastructure to solve this already for
Mhm.
anyone's kind of problem, right? So if it's a good indication, at least in my opinion, that like we're building something that people want and that people need, right?
Mhm.
Of course, you're only gonna give yourself you're only going to create a solution for yourself based on the current problem that you have, right? We have the advantage of we see like everyone has the same problem, and so do we, and we built an infra that solved our problem and also their problem.
Yep.
So we're like we've been fighting this problem for a little longer, the problem of repetition, right? So we do have
Mhm.
that like it's cool to see that there's more people, that are having the same problem as us, right? It's not just us in our own little world. It's like, no, like this is a common thing that everyone kind of runs into. Keen to hear what Gab has to say about it too, if he's not eating.
Yeah, no, I was about to eat, but you got me at a good point. So it's actually interesting. Like the reason why these, like all these protocols want to do an airdrop on to like their most faithful or their best users, and if you
Mhm.
drop this to like a bunch of bots, then a lot of your value goes away. So seeing other people kind of mentioning or yeah, mentioning what they're struggling with and um, uh, yeah, basically it confirms our value proposition and like what we're working towards, and it shows a clear need in terms of like filtering out the bots and like people who just want to farm your coin and dump it later. Yeah, no, I think it's a good signal for us, and I'm keen to see us explore these opportunities and with other DAOs to solve this problem further.
Yeah. On the platform side, there's plenty that is happening on exactly this kind of thing. Is there anyone that wants to jump in and add anything, or we get to move to the next one? Alex, anything on your end?
For example, the optimism airdrop is a good example of this
Mm.
problem where they reached out to the community to try to help, and a bunch of people like found Sybil actors that they could literally like take out of the whole airdrops. So yeah, I mean, I think us we're building something that could do this like automatically, right? So that's great. That's a thing that the community will need in the upcoming future.
Yeah, and you just think about how much time is spent and wasted on like trying to do an airdrop for a team when really they need to be focusing on creating the best possible product for their customers. So it's everyone solving the same problems in a subpar way, and distracting from the thing that they're really good at. So um, yeah, it'll be really exciting as we get better at like doing these. So let's move to the next one. This one was from Seb, who's the founder of Zapper, and basically talking about how like a social graph already exists on chain. And I think we like saw a lot of this with the scores in the passport, where if you find a user who has like multiple active scores, it turns out like they're actually a pretty good user because they interact with different parts of the ecosystem. So I found that kind of interesting because it felt like it resonated with that line of thinking somewhere. I don't know. Does that make sense, or anything that you guys want to add to that?
It's a big
Yeah,
graph.
yeah, it's a big graph. But I wanted to add something. Like, imagine with our current tech, we'd be able to take an address and we can say what kind of persona this person is, what kind of activity they enjoy doing. Are they just traders? Or are they more sophisticated with borrowing and lending and borrowing on multiple chains? And what do they do with this money? Um, and yeah, like with what protocols they interact. It's all interesting to see. I think like it says he says a social graph already exists on chain, doesn't need to be built. I had the impression that social graphs are also when you see that on Twitter, I thought it was also related to with what other addresses you are like in a social in a social media context, but I don't think this is the same take, right?
I think they're interrelated, right? Because like a social graph is like who are you connected to, who do you follow, who's following you, and you kind of do that implicitly when you send transactions to a wallet and you receive transactions from a wallet, right? So I think it's two off. Talia, is something you want to add in?
Who?
I feel like you wanted to add something in earlier.
Yeah, I
Oh,
did. I was just thinking like on Gab's point, right? Like imagine you have like because we have the tech to do this. Like you come, we're able to create the graph of like, hey, your on-chain activity is 45% DeFi, 35% this. You have like a nice little like profile of that, or you can even say like where you spend your most activity, right? Is most of your activity on this chain, on that chain, on this platform, on that platform? You've interacted with these addresses, right? Like that whole idea of creating a big graph is very computationally heavy, but it's like the more connected you are with other things, it's all of a sudden it's like, well, now the more you've proven that you deserve airdrops, to Alex points, right? Like you deserve to do stuff, right? It's not like, hey, I whip up a new address every month because I want to just keep dumping stuff and or whatever the reason, right? People don't have intrinsic motivation to build reputation because there is no rewards currently really for reputation. Once you start telling people, hey, there actually is something that you can do to get a better reputation to therefore get better things, maybe you should do it if you want those things. We have that in society, right? Don't hurt another human because then your reputation as a human is going to be bad, right? We have that with credit and banks. We have that with everything. On chain, it's just the Wild West right now because there is no way to identify addresses and what they do and everything. But like this is just yeah, social graph, it exists. That's one of the many things that exist for sure. Um, Anyway, all that's I was just like imagining like a nice cool little like I'm curious. I want to know this about myself. Like I don't even know what it would look like. So yeah.
It's like I always describe crypto as being like a frontier society, and like the fabric of this new society exists, but it isn't recognized. So really, what we do is just recognize what's already happening in a way that like people can actually understand and make use of in a more intelligent way. Anyone else want to add anything to that? Cool. Let's move to the next one. So this was a tweet from Tom at Dragonfly talking about the bear market, effectively, and kind of what it means. So I think we've spoken a lot internally at Arcit, kind of how bear markets are kind of like truth markets, and like everything that was unsustainable in the bull gets exposed viciously in the bear. So uh, one thing that kind of I think about is with especially the stuff that we're doing, a lot of communities that people thought they had communities kind of get washed out because you realize you didn't have a community, you had a bunch of people who were there for free money and to make it rich quick. So in bear markets, it's a lot more crucial to identify who's your real community rather than who you think is your community, because all the like hype on Discord evaporates when the price goes down every day. Uh, so yeah, that was like what went on in my mind. Alex, got anything that you want to add in?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. When we're going through a bear market, you see like who are the real people like that have the real genuine interest in projects, right? Also, it comes down to the teams themselves, right? Here at Archex, we have like a strong team. We're going through a bear market. Everyone goes through it, but we're still building. We're still going forward, still looking at the future. I mean, we know that we'll come out of it at some point, right? Um, yeah, but I think in the end, I mean, it's gonna filter out a bunch of not so good stuff that is happening in crypto right now. So bear market is like a big filtering, and we're only gonna come out stronger, I hope, as a market.
I agree. Um, Kyle, Gabe, Yark, anything you guys want to add in?
Yay for not doing treasury shenanigans. Because I've talked with a lot of other DAO like members and like founders and stuff, and they're all like, yeah, it's so easy to make like some kind of yield on your treasury. You just got to do like take a little risk and you get a huge reward, right? And it's like, yeah, great. And then how many of them just completely lose all their treasury as soon as the market doesn't always go up, right? Like, and it's very funny to see. It's very much truth markets, like you said, right? Like all these people, all these projects that are like, oh, hype, number go up only. They delete all the messages of any FUD. They like don't listen to feedback. It's just hype or GTFO. And then like we actually have a community. We actually listen to what people have to say. We actually respond to them, right? It's not just like hype. And then yeah, and now bear market hits, and where are all those communities, right? They're all gone. They all went back to TradFi. They all went back to doing something else because they're like, oh, it's just hype. But yeah, because you were just hype, right? You weren't building intrinsic value. So it's nice. It's calm. Get the focus. A lot less noise. I like it. I don't want it to stay forever, but I'm enjoying it.
No, that's a great way to round it off. Sweet. Let's jump in. So, the current direction of where we're going at ARC, it's a lot of it actually resonates with I think what's happening in the market. So, the first like key thematic is scaling our value proposition and platform to as many customers as possible, uh, by helping them with data effectively. And I'll touch more on platform in a bit. And then it's creating compelling borrowing product through the use of the credit score. And it's been interesting. There's been more chatter about under collateralized loans and how do we like start scaling credit in the crypto economy. So the updates from the credit team are going to be really exciting. And then the other bit is marketing and community to drive more customers to both lines of what we're doing. So over the next few weeks, you'll be seeing these community slides and the dining table getting upgraded, and seeing us do more collaborations with people in the industry. So that's thematically where we're going. And in terms of the specifics, let's jump into it. So on the platform side, I think the first thing is what is platform? It's a word we throw around a lot, but I don't think it's something we've ever defined. So it really comes down to two things. The first is using our data capability to generate insights for other DAOs, products, and communities. A lot of these entities or organizations don't know anything about their customers and how they should think about treating them, reaching them, or even recognizing them. So we have this very sophisticated, able technology that can do that for them and is very valuable based on the conversations we're having. So that's the first element of platform. And then the second is how do we create these insights to drive real change and impact for them? So it's nice to know how your users look like, but it's another thing to make them look the way you actually want them to, whether it's to be more engaged, loyal, repeatable in your protocol, etc. So that's at a very high level what platform is. Now, the second question is like, what makes us so special? And it really comes down to three things. The first is we understand what's happening at a user/individual level. A lot of the, I guess, data you see in crypto shows you graphs of what happens at the macro. At ARC, we really care about the micro. We care about each person. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? And building a high quality picture of that. And only once we build a high quality picture of that can we create interesting insights. So, a classic example I love to use is imagine a decentralized exchange that shows the amount of monthly volume. How much of that volume is done by bots? How much of that volume is done by people who use 3 dexes at once? How much of that volume is done by large whales? So things like that are really hard to answer if you don't know what's happening at the user/individual level. The second is we've got some very smart people who understand not only how to get the data, but make sense of it to inform decisions. So that really just comes down to the strength of the team that we have. And then the third is what we've done is built a way to make all of this data available in real applications. We showcase this through our credit product. So we have a Merkle root, which basically allows us to upload all of our computations on chain in a safe, scalable, and reliable way. And that allows us to create a whole new class of crypto applications that quite simply hasn't been imagined before. So that's at a very conceptual level what makes us special relative to anything else that's existed before. And in terms of like some of the problems we're scaling, so one of them is helping bots understand who is a bot versus who isn't one. That's something that we see comes up a lot. Second is having better analytic tools to understand their community and how to improve the state of it. So we can shine a light and be like, here's what your community actually looks like, and here's what you might want to do to improve the state of it. And that kind of ties into what we talked about with the market slide, where as the bear market hits and a lot of the communities are being exposed for what they are, a lot of projects need a lot of help to understand how do they improve the state of their community. And then the third is finding efficient ways to market the core value proposition outside of pure yield farming. So this kind of touches on the second point of like driving change and impact. A lot of the time, change and impact has been done through yield farming and these incentive structures that create misaligned incentives. So creating more intelligent incentive schemes that drive change in the way that makes sense for a protocol is something that we're doing here at Platform. So the way we plan on scaling this is by solving the most painful problems on a per problem basis for specific customers, and then scaling it to other customers with similar pain points. So that's like at a very high level what we're doing. And I'd be happy to open it up to anyone if they have any questions on Platform, including anyone in the team.
I guess no.
Are we something? Are we allowed to, or are we going to talk about any of the current problems that we are exploring? Like any?
No, sorry, go for it.
You know, you say that on a per problem basis.
Yeah.
So like any problem that we have in scope when going to other DAOs, like what kind of problems are we looking to solve for the moment?
The one listed to the left, the ones that I just talked about, these three, like these are thematically.
Okay. So we're going. I thought it was like these are some of the current problems, and then we're focusing on like this one or two that we go in.
Yeah, the priority weighting of them like it looks a bit different. So probably next dining table we can make this a bit more clear. How much energy is going into what. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to that at the next dining table we have like some DAOs that we associate with problems, and this is how we solve it. You know, like
yeah, building that way. I think it's just more of like confidentiality. These are still early, so that's the only thing that we're constantly balancing. But yeah, the more we can share, the more exciting. Cool. Well, that's it on the platform. Let's pass it on to credit.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, this is
I'm
why
gonna
everyone came.
take the first slide, which will just be like a bit of context. If you flick to the next one, whoever's driving. So for those of you who might not have like seen much about what we've been building on the credit side, I think we just want to like spend a minute just like quickly describing what our vision is and the strategic positioning that we're going for. And just to contextualize this, it's like we've been building this product for about 6 months off the back of a lot of work that was being done from the platform side on like building the core infrastructure for ArcX. But you know, where we're currently sitting is like, you know, fairly close to more of like a public release. Obviously, like we want to take it slow. There's a lot of like risk involved, but you know, after speaking with a whole lot of different borrowers over the last few months, and really just like understanding the market and the lay of the land, we're really rallying around this vision and strategic positioning. And so yeah, essentially, the goal for credit is to offer the safest and most capital efficient borrowing experience in DeFi. And the safest is really important because the main thing that we observed is that people like when they get liquidated or when they're at risk, like it's incredibly painful, and we want to do everything we can to help people not get liquidated and not take on excessive risk. And the level of understanding about how to manage risk effectively is disappointingly low, and it's not because the individuals involved. It's more to do with the platforms and products that are available in the market. They don't do a good job at explaining the risk exposure of the user and alerting them to make the right decision that will help them to avoid liquidation. That's the safest part. Obviously, the capital efficient part is the other big thing, and that's coming out of the credit score and the fact that we'll be able to offer much higher loan to value for individual users based on that credit score. And so the kind of combination of those two is what we're really anchoring on. Eventually, we want to become that go-to platform for more sophisticated, smarter investors to realize financial upside for borrowing safely. And so this is going to what Kyle was saying before about, you know, like why would I want to build a reputation in DeFi against my pseudonymous wallet address? Well, in our world, you'll be able to avoid liquidation and realize greater capital efficiency. So yeah, that's essentially that. And then in 1 to 2 years, you know, we aspire to have facilitated over $1 billion in loans, and the credit score product, will become the reference credit score for DeFi. So for any address, we'll be able to assign a credit score based on any activity across DeFi, not just on ArcX, and then that credit score will be used as like a strong indicator for creditworthiness. So this all kind of like lines up into a strategic positioning for those experienced borrowers who want to maximize their capital efficiency while minimizing or managing their risk exposure. We are building a decentralized liquidity market that offers dynamic LTV ratios on loans based on credit scores unique to each address. And the ultimate goal here is that we want to empower and reward borrowers who demonstrate effective risk management practices. So that's kind of like the context or the strategic context. What I'll do is I'll hand over to Gabe, who will go through kind of like the last 2 weeks, and just kind of like frame up the work that we're doing across risk, product, and infrastructure, and then also what we're doing over the next 2 weeks.
All right, cool. Thank you, Hugh. So so our efforts are basically divided in 3 categories, like Hugh mentioned: app, risk, and infrastructure. App is everything that is credit lending and borrowing, and what you see actually at Archex.money. So what's on the surface? The risk is what's happening in the background to make sure that our system is safe. Credit scoring and like analyzing the vaults, etc. And the infrastructure is what supports, kind of like the backend that supports the entire app together. So in the last 2 weeks, we've been busy doing a redesign of our credit platform. Basically, there has been many back and forths, but it looks really, really nice, as you'll see in 2 slides. We also worked on the liquidation engine to make sure our system is safe. This is basically a liquidator bot that has been worked on, and that we will open source shortly. On the risk side, basically, we finished in the implementation of the liquidation score component, as the score is basically divided, has like 2 components: the liquidation component and the behavior component. So that's what it's the first part that we talk here. The liquidation component, it's currently under review. The loan history metadata is a part that we basically on the front end you'll be able to see your on-chain activity regarding our borrowing platform. So this is still in progress. And finally, we're working on monitoring to make sure that our credit score is as the highest quality possible. On the infrastructure side, we worked on moving the Merkle trees in Titan. What that means for those who don't have the context, basically, Titan is kind of another backend service or team that we have internally that has a lot of computation power. And so instead of building the Merkle trees that we actually publish, of which root we publish on chain, instead of building it on our normal backend servers, we actually are going to shift it over to Titan to make things much, much more efficient, allowing us to include in our Merkle root millions of scores, essentially. So this is still in progress, but we have done great progress over the last 2 weeks. So we can go to the next slide. And since I'm talking about the infra, I'm going to start there. For the next 2 weeks, we will focus on closing out the infrastructure upgrade for the Merkle tree creation. So what I've talked about, we have a little bit of work, but we should be able to finish that in the next, I don't know if we all want to call it sprint, I suppose. Also on the infrastructure side, tying up with the liquidator bot, we want to, we were looking at for a while, but now we're serious about it. We're gonna open up some public two GitHub repos, at least for the moment. One is gonna be the liquidator bot, so you can fork it and improve it, and you can basically compete to keep the system safe while making money at the same time. And the second one is the contracts repo. We have to clean up our internal repo, and we will make it open source. There's also a bug bounty that isn't coming, but I'm not gonna talk about that for now until we actually sign the papers. So yeah, that's gonna be crucial in the publication of our contracts repo. On the app side, as I said earlier, the front end redesign the designs are ready to go. So now we're gonna start working on them, on actually implementing them. Implementing the version 2, that is, because the first version's already out, but only available for the team. And finally, for the risk side, we want to finalize the credit score V2. So an improved credit score, making sure that is stable and works great with our app. And we want to start working with the Vault B and C. Vaults B and C are basically riskier. Actually, vaults that are unlocked with a certain credit score threshold. But enough. I'm really keen for you guys to actually see it with your own eyes, because it's going to be much more useful. So I'll pass it on to, I think, Hugh, who's going to talk about just give you a sneak peek of the designs on the new credit score on a credit platform.
Cool, thanks, Gabe. Yeah, so I mean, these are like Figma designs that we're like putting into development in the next week. And as was mentioned, there's a lot of components to the credit score and to the product itself that are really important to call out. This screen here you're seeing is essentially like the homepage for credit. And at the top left, you've got this element which will be your credit score. It's essentially like a number from 1 to 999, and this has like a direct correlation with the maximum loan to value that you'll be able to receive across different vaults. The way that we've designed the vault architecture is that each collateral type will have 3 vaults at the moment, so vault A, B, and C, and these will correspond with different maximum LTVs. So everyone will start at credit score of 0 with vault A, and that will get them up to a 90% LTV if they've got like a good credit score. But as your credit score grows, additional vaults will unlock. So vault B then has a maximum LTV of 95, and then vault C has potentially, TBD, this was all work that we are still kind of figuring out from a risk perspective, but could be like very feasibly be up to 100% LTV. So that gives you a flavor of how like capital efficiency gets unlocked over time. What's cool about this is that so you've got on the credit score element, you've got your current score, and then you've got like a diagram which basically shows you the trend. But the way that the user will experience this, we wanted to keep the credit score. There was a balancing act between the simplicity of the credit score and the sophistication of it from a risk and financial perspective. So for the end user, the way to build your credit score is by borrowing at an optimal borrow usage. And essentially that's somewhere in between 50 and 70% of your total borrow usage. As you go higher, the rate of growth of your credit score slows down, and the same thing is true for if you go backwards. If you're borrowing at a very conservative level, your credit score will continue to grow, but at a very slow rate. If your usage is too high, then you'll start losing points, and if you get liquidated, you'll lose a lot of points. That kind of component is combined with something that we mentioned in the previous slide around the liquidation score component, which essentially takes a look at a whole bunch of other factors. So there's a lot going into that, and we'll talk about that more soon. But that's essentially the UI for the borrow. If you then flick down to the next slide, this is just a sneak peek into what the vault itself will look like. Essentially, will give you the ability to deposit, borrow, withdraw, and repay. It's a very, very similar experience, but it'll overlay that with some of the information that's unique to ArcX, such as this idea of the optimal borrowing position, the collateral, the capital efficiency that you'll be able to get, and your credit score, and so on. So that's really the main thing that we're working on over the next 2 weeks from a front end perspective. If you, I don't have a slide on this, but something that we'll talk about in the next dining table will just be like how to get involved in this, because what we'll be really keen to do is for people on the call and for people who are listening in later, we want to start testing this with people who are really interested, and so we will want to have like a bit of a closed beta for a short period of time before we do a wider release to the public. And so we'll put some information out there that describes that on how to get involved, probably in the next 2 weeks, if not in an announcement sometime later. But that's basically the update. We've got a lot of work to go, but yeah, it feels like we're on the home stretch, and yeah, thinking like 3 to 4 weeks we'll be able to have a product out in market, which is cool. So that's really the update from my side.
Well, I just wanted to add like a quick little thing here, because there are not enough memes in these slides, so had to do something basically, yeah, while doing the implementation for the liquidation bot, we saw that 2 addresses were actually at risk, and I took a screenshot here. This is our first liquidation that you guys can see on chain. But yeah, the liquidator must liquidate. So as soon as this is live, this task was done manually, but as soon as the bot is live, no one will have second chances. Only the credit score can protect you. So that being said,
Credit score we trust.
yes, it would be really cool actually here. It's we're joking, but actually imagine if we have some perks. We already talked about it, but we have some perks where high credit score people can have some kind of protection, like 24 hours protection from liquidation, something like that. This has to be more, like we need deeper discussions because it implies technical like changes, but it would be pretty cool. Actually.
Yeah, agreed. It's I think there's like been very little innovation on borrowing products, so everything we can do to push the needle forward here is going to be exciting for the entire DeFi space, not just us. So yeah, Kyle, was there something you want to add? Because I saw you unmuted.
No, just either that or like there's so many things, like exotic assets, under collateralized loans, insurance, there's notifications, there's so many things that we can expand that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
This is just like we're just getting started. This isn't like, okay, cool, end all be all, we got credit score. No. This is the start. Like
the best place to borrow in DeFi. Cool. Well, Joel, I'll pass it over to you for the community slides.
Yeah, cool. So I just wanted to do a quick update on the GM leaderboard. So if we look, we can obviously see the increases from last week. And one of the most notable changes is Gabe. He's actually on the leaderboard now. So well done, Gabe, for your 1-day GM streak. And I think that's probably the main change we can see. And if I go on to the next slide now, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Corey. You're always providing us with creative humor and your potato farming, your potato smart contracts, and everything like that. We love it. So yeah, please tell us more.
Yeah, I love that potato one. Just on that note, I read that and like I couldn't stop laughing. It was like it's so common. Like you go in every Discord and you have at least one message there, like, "Dear sir, I am a potato. I offer a potato this, potato that, potato this. Please buy my potato services." It's like, well, you must be a great potato seller if you're coming here.
Yeah, actually, go ahead.
No, you go.
Yeah, you might, like if anyone is listening and they're, the kind of people who are looking for jobs and want to actually work for DAOs, I think instead of making like a generic message and just like spam all the Discords, it would be really like much more interesting if you actually study the protocol and you say, oh, look, I found this smart contract, I made like this thing with it, and it's like, oh wow, you integrated, you did a lot of effort. Let's have it's actually very interesting and it invites us to open the conversation. Otherwise, like we see them too many times.
Yeah, it's all that intention. It's like be intentional in your message and your outreach, and the rest will follow.
Yeah, and I mean, off the back that I think we really should start a potato farming DAO. So Corey, if you want to head up that, please give us a shout.
I wonder if we do something where it's like, yeah, we build on this potato meme. I feel like there's something here.
There's gotta be something, yeah.
Potato coin as rewards if you borrow.
Free potatoes forever. Imagine that person with the highest credit score gets like a real potato delivered to them.
Yeah, if you have like low credit score, then you have rotten potatoes.
Oh, that'll be good.
Yeah.
Cool.
So okay. So just to round it off, I wanted to read out some words from the Pope. So 147. Rumor has it Kerman's been talking to Albo about introducing ArcX backend in the new rollout for Australian DIDs. Again, just a rumor, but imagines. Amen. And I leave you with that.
Corey, if you're watching this, you're an absolute legend. So don't stop.
Hey, quick thing here. Actually, Kerman's made me think of Kerman holders. Just wanted to remind that the actual Kerman holder staking is over. It was over on June 1st, and I'm glad that this chapter is done.
Yeah, I think we might need to extend the deadline temporarily because I had a few people say they missed it, but we'll discuss that offline.
Yeah.
Thanks for everyone tuning in. I'll stay on if anyone wants to keep chatting.